Hello, and welcome to my interpersonal communication project for the Human Services Class HSER 508. If you go to the next slide, I will introduce myself to you. My name is Heather Malsby, also known as Heather Aker. I am 23 years old from Houston, Texas. I was born and raised in Texas. I'm a follower and believer in God, and I just got married to the love of my life, Clayton, last July. I am also a nanny for a 1-year-old little girl, and it's the funnest and just the best job ever, and I love it. Next slide, I'll give you some background into my life. I'm a preacher's kid as well as a preacher's wife. My dad has been a pastor since I was 8 years old, and my husband is now a youth pastor. I was a gymnast for full-time when I was little, and I went to a charter school so that I could be a gymnast. From there, I went to tiny schools. I went to a tiny high school and a tiny college with small classes, and I think that's a big part how it's affected the way I communicate with others. I graduated from a class of 19 in high school at a tiny private school, and then from there I went to a tiny Christian college called University of Mary Hardin Baylor, and I graduated in December of 2010 with a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, and I minored in Christian Studies. I am now at grad school online at Liberty, and I'm studying Human Services, Marriage, and Family Therapy. I will continue on the next slide with more of my background. In college, I was a high school youth intern at church. I love church and I love ministry, and that's why I am studying Marriage and Family Therapy, because I hope to be a therapist at a church. I was also a nanny in my 3.5 years at school as well. I love children and I love to work with them. Next slide, I will talk about my overarching goal. I want to be a better listener, be less defensive in arguments and conversations, be more open, and be more patient with others. Mainly, I want the people I'm close to or have communications with to feel heard and cared for by the way I listen to them and the way I talk with them without any judgments. Next slide, I will talk about enlarging the conversation. To me, enlarging the conversation means that all persons in the conversation have the chance to talk and get their point across equally. Each person should be able to ask questions and have an opportunity to gain clarity. We can also gain knowledge from conversation with others and improve our professional and personal relationships, according to Burley Allen. Next slide, I will talk about my background and behavioral blends. To me, blends are a mixture of character traits that form one's personality. According to Interpersonal, 4 basic personality types are D, I, S, and C. D is active and task-oriented, I is active and people-oriented, S is passive and people-oriented, and C is passive and task-oriented. Next slide, I will talk about my personal blend. I am a blend of S and CIS. I like to blend in. I'm a people pleaser, very indecisive, and I'm more comfortable in smaller groups. I relate best individually and with people who are like me. When I'm around a lot of people, I am shy and submissive until I'm around close friends and family, and I am more outspoken and confident in myself when I'm around them. Next slide, I will talk about how this affects my communication. I'm very indecisive because I want to please others and make them happy. I let other people take advantage of me and walk all over me. They know it is hard for me to say no. I tend to worry more than others, and this affects me physically, emotionally, and spiritually. It affects me emotionally and physically because I stress out to the nth degree and I lose sleep over how I'm going to help others. It affects me spiritually because I lose sight of how my own relationship with God, it just goes away because I'm so focused on everyone else. I've struggled with this since I was in high school, and it's something I continue to work on a daily basis. Next slide, I will talk about my potential barriers to communication. I am at times too concerned with how people see me. My mind can tend to wander, and I think ahead to what I'm going to say in response to the person talking. And according to Burley Allen, I am a rescuer. And a rescuer, which is part of his drama triangle, is an advice giver and takes on everyone else's burdens, responsibilities, and problems, even if they don't want it, need it, or asking for help. And a problem with this behavior is that, like me, when I do this, I get overwhelmed and I let people run all over me, and I don't have time to get the things I need to get done. Next slide, I'll continue to talk about my barriers. And according to Chan's research, some scholars view the internet as an empowering medium that provides an outlet for shy individuals to meet others and build enduring relationships. I can agree with this because I do think that Facebook, Twitter, and texting has been a medium for shy kids like me who are afraid to talk in large groups, but I also think this is bad and negative because it doesn't allow for proper communication, whether it's face-to-face or just over the phone. Like, people just don't do that anymore, and it's sad, and it can cause children nowadays to be less effective professionally and relationally in their future. Next slide, I'm going to talk about how to deal with these barriers. If I don't worry so much how others see me, then I can be a better listener and be more confident in who God made me. I will also take Peterson's approach of the talker-listener process. This will help remind me to not just talk, but hear everything else the other person is saying. I also think it will help to repeat back what the other person is saying, and it will help me to focus on them and what they're saying instead of what I'm going to say in return to them. My mentor reminded me that God has a plan, and it is okay for me to not always be able to help everyone, and it's okay to say no every once in a while. If I help everyone, somebody else might miss out on a chance to help that person. It also might affect the person in not being able to learn for themselves if I'm constantly trying to help them. I want to work on being more open with people and not so shy, and to do that, I don't want to rely on the computer like Facebook or texting. I want to have an actual conversation, whether it's face-to-face or over the phone, but at least I'm actually talking to them. Next slide, I will try to describe noise pollution. Noise is what interferes with our ability to send and receive messages. External noise are things like a baby crying, a cell phone going off, other people talking, fidgeting, room temperature such as it's either too hot or too cold, and birds chirping. Internal noise are things like personal thoughts, feelings, shyness, or feelings of inadequacy. Next slide, I will talk about my personal external noise pollution. I get distracted when other people are around and talking about something different. I also like to people watch, so I get distracted easily. I also get distracted by cell phones going off, whether it's mine or somebody else's. I can fix this by trying to go to a quiet or more private setting, as well as putting my phone on silent and putting it out of sight and out of mind. Next slide, I will talk about my internal noise pollution. I tend to let my personal thoughts get in the way. Feelings of inadequacy is the major pollution for me. I can work on this by remembering that emotions are God-given, and according to Peterson, I need to recognize, accept, and figure out what to do with the energy or emotion. I also need to remember that patients don't usually want to know my own thoughts or opinions. They're just there to talk to somebody, and that's what I want to be for them. Next slide, I will talk about my plan of action. According to Beatty, what makes a good listener is being able to focus my attention on the other's communication in order to understand the other's meaning or experience. And I think that's a great explanation of what a good listener is. Next, conversation is a relationship. According to Stewart, if I don't stay in communication with those who are close to me, then the relationship will start to dwindle. We saw that in Fireproof with Caleb and Catherine. They didn't talk to each other, and it slowly started to cause conflict in their relationship. I can also see that in my own relationship with my husband. When one of us will come home from work, we'll ask how the other's doing, and we'll just say good, but we really need to just talk and be more open with each other. Otherwise, our relationship will dwindle if we don't keep in constant communication with each other. Next, I will continue with my plan of action. I intend to start practicing the talker-listener process with those who are really close with me now, before I start using it in a patient-type setting. I will make it an effort to be in a quiet and private area to talk with friends and those who need to talk, so I am not distracted by external noise. If I can't, then I will inform the individual that I will repeat back to them what they say so we both know I understand what they're saying. Next slide, I will conclude my presentation. I learned a lot from this class about myself and the way I listen. I am excited to share with my friends and family what I have learned through this class, and I hope they can learn from it as well. I pray that in all my future communications that they will feel heard, cared for, and not judged by the way I talk and listen to them. Thank you.